What is up, guys? Today we are doing an Ultra character only tier list where we're going to talk about the pros and cons of each Ultra, if they have any cons, because spoiler, a couple of them really don't. We're going to talk about them. We're going to rank these characters. I hope that you guys enjoy, and subscribe if you are new to the channel for more content. The like goal for today's video is going to be 1,000. So also, I want to know in the comments down below what your top 3 Ultras are in the game, who you think those 3 are. I think the first 2 are pretty easy to get, but I'm curious about that third character overall in the game. It actually may be kind of straightforward, but I'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to it. But before we hop in, I do want to say today's video is sponsored. So off the jump, there are 13 characters that are ultra rarity in the game currently. And previously when I did this video, I think was in May. And so that was basically everything up until Kid Buu. Kid Buu came out at that point, and then that was pre-Ultra for Vegito Blue and the anniversary and all that stuff, and obviously pre-Janemba. So Kid Buu was the last one at that point. Coincidentally, they slowed down a lot once they hit the halfway point of the year, because up until that point, Ultras were coming out nearly monthly. So yeah, it's interesting to see. We've only had 3 Ultras since May, but it's cool. I don't mind it too much. So we're going to just go in order of how they're listed as opposed to when they came out, because if you're not familiar with the ultra rarity characters, they started off doing these ones at the bottom. Actually, I think they're listed by order, starting with Goku, going to Vegeta, then Shenron, and so on and so forth. It looks like they are listed by order of release. So that's pretty much how they came out. So coincidentally, as you see here, Super Gogeta was the original summonable Ultra, because again, the first 3 were free. We go ahead and proceed from there, and some of these Ultras are really showing their age, because it's not really only a factor with the Ultras, it's also a factor with the LFs and the other characters in the game. Like, most notably, Goku and Frieza are just better than... You can make an argument Goku and Frieza are better than this entire list, for the record. I think it's up in the air about 1 character, and that's about it. So, and I guess situationally 2 characters, but like that's a third character versus Goku and Frieza is pushing it. It's only 1 or 2. That's it. So yeah, interesting. So we're gonna start off with Rose, because he's the first one on our list here. So Rose is a character that I think has a little bit more value now than he did recently, which is normal. That's understandable, because we did just get a blue character. So obviously Rose is going to slide in as the best green character in the game. You know what it is? You know what's really funny? They pretty much hate green. They hate green. They absolutely hate green. I do think that Piccolo is probably going to get a platinum equip sometime soon, the Power Awakened Piccolo. That's one of the things that I am looking forward to with the Movie Saga campaign, or relatively soon after. I'm not sure, just hypothetical, obviously. But I mean, the rest of green is just a wasteland. Like, they gave us this Goku who's actually a lot better than advertised with the full Dragon Ball team, the new equip they gave him and stuff like that. That Gohan is one of the most underrated characters in the game too. Another relatively recent release. The Goku here probably has a little higher stock than you would think. Kaioe is solid too. But I mean, like, there's some Zenkais like this Kaioken Goku, but like, green is dead. Rose's the best. So his value will go up, because with that being the case, with Janemba popping in, he's there. And also, Rose does have his own merits. He's also like just a really good character in general, as like the way that he was designed. He was like one of the original characters that's just like, bro, what are they doing here? Like, the power leap after Beast Gohan was insane, with Beast Gohan basically resetting the meta, which, by the way, he's a year old as of yesterday, I believe. Resetting the power gap in the meta, and Rose pops in is just insane overall, and still functions pretty well, I think. And again, he kind of fell off a little bit, but I think with Janemba seemingly going to be in a lot of matches, you do have Rose climbing back up. So I'm going to leave Rose in B tier, and I'll kind of explain why in a minute. So I really need a row below this, because this is just F. But that's really my starting point. So the next one on our list is Ultra Scouter Vegeta. I'm not even gonna pull up his page. We are just going to leave Vegeta here. So yeah, I'm gonna leave Vegeta there. He's just gonna stay there. By the way, left to right placement doesn't matter. Like, if I put Gogeta here, that doesn't mean he's better than Rose. Left to right doesn't matter. So I'm just going to leave him here, because at the end of it, the characters that actually deserve to be an F will be an F. So we're going to move over to Broly next. And Broly recently got, it wasn't only for him, I think it actually applies to Janemba as well, that equip for powerful opponents and stuff. So Broly actually got a little bit better with that equip. Also, I think Broly's utility is interesting. I think that Broly is a character that you could use effectively if you wanted to. And part of the reason why is because Broly has some interesting mechanics. His gauge is really, really strong. So whenever his gauge activates, activates, here's what happens. So when it resets to 0, he completely reduces the enemy's vanishing gauge 4 times, and it resets, or it will not activate if the character is defeated, so that's important to know. We gotta know, right? Reduces their ki, destroys a card, reduces a Dragon Ball by 1, restores his own health 4 times, also applies buff effect, nullifies special cover changes to self, and then cancels his downgrades. That's a lot of value out of the effect here, and considering he can reduce vanish gauge to 0 4 times is really, really strong. I think where Broly kind of falls by the wayside is the inability to output damage comparable to the top end characters in the game. Some of that's just power creep, how old he is, etc. I mean, look at this. Broly's starting off with 110% damage and 60% damage cut, and Janemba, for context, is starting with like 150 and 70. Yeah, 150 and 70 comparatively. That's just where the game is now. And so when you take a character like Broly and you try to compare them versus the current characters, you kind of run into things like that where just the multipliers are a lot lower. So obviously you're going to be kind of left by the wayside. And also Broly has interesting utility with his cover change. He's got one of the best cover changes in the game. Also, he has the ability to freaking cover change into blue cards and then counter with a freaking blue card of his own. Pretty interesting stuff there. He also has pretty much everything else that you would want in a character. Now, again, the problem with the Broly is his inability to output comparatively to the other characters. He is a melee character. You would expect for him to do crazy damage, but his gauge is really strong. However, I'm going to leave Broly where he is. At C placement right there. Notice there's no D, because when I'm done with it, there's going to be a gap. Just imaginary D. I could add it and leave it empty, but it will be empty. So yeah. Next up is Ultra Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta here. So I'm going to move him to B tier. Yeah. So you'll see the vision when I get there, right? You'll see what's happening with A when I get there. So B tier here. The thing with Gogeta is that he is showing his age. He came out almost a year ago, actually. He came out for Legends Festival last year, so I think it was like January. So he's almost a year old in a couple of months, and he is showing his age. But his gauge, like the gauge, is like the most important thing with most of these characters. But his gauge is still incredibly strong. One of the ultimate effects in the game that just says there's no counterplay to this. So Janemba comes out with a strike-based version of this gauge, and it does function a little bit differently, because this one pops as he gets hit. And so what he does ultimately is he destroys the enemy strike cards, and if they use a blast or even like a ranged like special move, he just instantly gets basically a special cover change built in for himself, which is pretty crazy, right? But you'll see that the merits of the effect are a little bit different. Now, Janemba, when we get to him, is restricted to only doing it like 3 times or whatever. Actually, if unique gauge is full, consume entire gauge and activates 3 times. I've never popped it 3 times, so I assumed he could do it more, but he also is restricted. So Janemba just has a better version of this. So, I mean, it's easier to get Gogetas technically, but we'll talk about Janemba a little bit more. Janemba is kind of the gold standard because he is the newest character released, right? And then also, when the gauge is full, he reduces enemies' Dragon Balls, shortens allies' sub count, restores health for himself by 20 and then 10% more, nullifies unfavorable elements, nullifies special cover changes, destroys all of your enemy's strike cards as well. And then, like I said, if they use a blast versus him, he's going to get priority off of that. So you have a lot of effects just passively happening. Ultimate, just you can't play the game type of effects that started popping into these characters. So Gogeta, he does do much more than that, but he is an incredibly well-aging character, one of the most impressive aged characters in the game overall. So definitely a character that if you have him, you can make use of him. But just like Broly, you're going to see some of the effects are just not completely and entirely up to snuff, right? Also, another really powerful effect with this guy is the Rising Rush mechanic. So applies the following effects itself on this character, activates the Rising Rush, restores Vanish Gauge by 100%, and nullifies enemies' endurance effect for attacks for 3 counts. By the way, the 3 counts effect is actually very important. If they somehow live a rush from this guy, you could potentially tap punch kill them and nullify the endurance. So like, that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I would expect them not to, right? I would expect them not to. But yeah, so the full vanish is ultimate, like right there. The full vanish is really, really, really strong. If you happen to miss your rush somehow, whatever, that's really strong. But then just flat out nullifying is pretty crazy. So ultimately, Gogeta is really, really strong. So Kaioken, I'm going to move him to C tier. He is the second oldest, I believe, was on the list. Second oldest summonable Ultra in the game. And so it's interesting when you look at him because he is a character that has merits of his own. He was a character that and he still is a character that I don't know that I want to see really get buffed, because the way he was designed was when his gauge popped off, he just did so many things. And also, again, remember, when he came out, he was a second summonable Ultra, so he had crazy utility. His problem was that he wouldn't really do a lot of damage. He needed to kind of ramp up. He needed to get his gauge multiple times, etc. And his gauge was easy to get, but if you, for example, if you weren't charge stepping or whatever, it wasn't particularly easy to get. You didn't really know what you were doing. If you weren't a player that did that stuff, he had no use to you. So all in all, he may be the least brain dead character on this list, because you actually have to know how to play the game to use him. And as you saw with Gogeta just does stuff, right? You don't have to actually know how to really play the game when you have some of these other characters like Gogeta or Vegito Blue. We'll talk about him later. So whenever the gauge was full, he would draw green, restores his health by 15% 7 times, 40% damage up to 80. See, he has these caps on it, which is interesting. I think he was the original character that was coming out with 110 on damage, by the way. So I remember when 110 was just passively put there, it was like, oh, this is a thing now. And then we see Janemba, like I said, at 150. Cap another 40% up to 80 on blast, special move damage, restore vanish gauge 5 times, and reduces enemy sustained damage cut. And then I believe his green card auto draw another card. Yeah, it does auto draw another card, so he would just pop off. And then he has nullify special cover change on his main ability. Ironically, it's for 30 counts, which is super duper long on the main ability. I don't love it when it's on the main sometimes, because that means you're forced to draw and use the ultimate at some point. But if you can rattle off a combo that's really long, which he can do with his gauge and also the green card and all that stuff popping off, he has really long combo potential, some of the highest combo potential in the entire game. But if he had the ability to get just a few counts of nullify cover change on his gauge, that would be huge for this guy. That would be huge. In fact, I think that's on Vegito Blue. That would be huge for him. Unfortunately, he doesn't have it. And also, they have platinum equips for some of these guys that are specific, but it's only the free ones. I don't know if and or when they plan on giving these characters any sort of platinum equips. I don't know. We'll see. By the way, guys, if you made it to this point of the video, I want to say thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. It means a ton to me. Be sure to hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the video. And again, remember, post down below your 3 favorite Ultras in Dragon Ball Legends. All right. So next up on our list is going to be Super Saiyan Vegito. I feel like Super Saiyan Vegito or Super Vegito could be in a C+, B-. If I made an in-between tier, I feel like he could be there. I feel like he's a cut above the other two, but isn't as good as the two above him. So remember that as we go through the video, right? And at the end of the video, for the people that inevitably click to the end, if you see any comments on it, let them know that that's my thought process on Vegito. So the only thing I don't really love about Vegito, I've highlighted the gauges on these Ultras. I don't really love his gauge, and I don't really love the effectiveness of it. And also, so the way he's designed is he's got a counter effect built into his gauge, which it's strong. It is strong. Don't get me wrong. It's just probably the least impressive one I think I've seen. I mean, all the other ones are doing stuff like reducing vanish gauge and then taking Dragon Balls off, destroying cards, or this and that, a bunch of other crap. And then Vegito just gets that counter, which gives him the ability to do nullify cover changes, which, by the way, I hate that there. Let me pull up his gauge. I absolutely hate nullify cover change on his gauge effect. So restores gauge by 10% every time an enemy uses a strike or blast while his character is on the battlefield. The effects occur when the enemy's attack is over, gets 20%, while charging forward with a strike arts if own gauge is at 30% or more. So I guess that's a benefit. He doesn't have to have an entirely full gauge. It just needs to be at least at 30%. But it will consume the entire gauge. This would be so much better if he could have this proc up to 3 times, 30, 60, 90 from a full gauge. That would be so much better, by the way. And it wouldn't be broken by today's standards, but I can understand why, a year and a half ago, it would seem broken when he came out. Man, time has flown by, huh? Unique gauge to counter enemies' tap shots or blast arts. So he does a knockback of their blast, basically, dealing impact damage to the enemy. So he's also got the only gauge that directly is doing damage. In fact, probably the only gauge in the entire game so far that directly does damage. I have to look at LFs and stuff too, but probably. The damage from this attack is treated as if it was a strike arts, and any abilities that apply to the arts card used beforehand will apply to the counter as well. That is strong. That is useful. And then when the counter activates, he gets extra key plus 100% extra strike arts damage that should apply to the counter itself to make it hit harder for 2 counts. And then he picks up nullify special cover change for 10 counts. So the problem with having nullify cover change here is that this resets you back to neutral. You're not getting priority off of his gauge activating, and so you're still fishing to get priority to even use this. And if you eat up 5, 6, 7 counts, well, then all of a sudden you're just kind of stuck. And he doesn't have another way to get nullify cover change. Changing cover, let me just double check. Changing cover. He does not, yeah, it's the only one. He does not have another way to get that effect anywhere else in his kit, which is a shame, actually, because it means that you have to land that, and maybe you're playing against a skilled player who's not going to give you that. Some players are just not going to give you that. Or a very passive player. Nonetheless, so like you're reliant on getting that to even do that, which is a shame because he has really good combo potential. He has draw speed, he has the green card, which is really strong too. He has good combo potential, but he can't sustain a reliable combo without getting that counter off, because otherwise you're forced to do things like drop comboing and stuff like that, which is unfortunate. He does, however, have endurance. He does have a hard-hitting ultimate. Like I said, he when he came out, he ruled the game. He was really freaking strong. This guy was really strong. However, I can say that same thing about most of the Ultras that released, aside from maybe Broly, maybe Kaioken, but like Super Gogeta 2, who I don't think we've talked about yet, also ruled the game. And I guess that's kind of the theme, right? So Super Vegito does have his flaws, but I do think he's a cut above the other 2 characters in terms of utility. And also, again, the endurance is very strong and valuable. So next up is Hit. I actually kind of feel like Hit's gonna go to B tier, but I almost feel like I wish I had 2 in between tiers. Like I would put Super Vegito in C+ and Hit in B- maybe, because I feel like the other 2 are maybe a little bit better. But I once again, when I did this video previously, I put all 3 of those characters on the same tier, and I just said they're pretty much equivalent. That's still mostly how I feel, but I think that the other 2 have a couple of other situations, like Rosé, you know, being a green character, and the only real, like, there's a couple green characters, but like the main green character you can use today and be effective with. But Hit's time skip. Dude, Hit's time. I'm not going to pull up and elaborate on Hit, but the time skip is nuts. I think also Hit has a double cover change. I haven't been talking about the double cover changes. Like, I think Gogeta has that too. Some of them don't have that though. They'll just have like a single focus cover change. Then Broly's there with his all-encompassing cover change, basically. Not completely, but almost. So yeah, but the time skip, dude, that's a free kill. It's a free kill. So like, actually, I would leave him in B at least. I would leave him in B. Maybe I would create a B+ and move somebody else up like Rosé. But Hit has a free kill, so I can't really be too critical of that. Omega Shenron, not really gonna talk about. I will bring up one thing with Shenron that I like about him, is that his support ability, or his Ultra ability, is a support ability. They haven't done another one of these. So plus 5% damage inflicted by allies per GT battle member when this starts. So up to 15%. It's nothing crazy. Plus an additional to his own up to 30%. So he himself is getting, what, 45? It's nothing crazy, but it is nice on a full GT team. I do like that. That is pretty solid. And don't get me wrong, these free ones have things in their kit that are strong. Like this guy cancels enemies' upgrades and buff effects. That's a solid effect. It's just they're so damn old, there's no point in even using them. Also, I don't think Shenron even has a unique equip. Isn't it just Vegeta and Goku? I don't think Shenron has unique equip. So yeah, Shenron, by the way, is staying in F. Goku, I'm not gonna... He's garbage. He's staying in F. No, I actually don't really think Goku has anything particularly redeeming. Like his green card would be kind of redeeming, but like it doesn't do things you would want it to do, so like I can't really, you know. So Super Gogeta, the original summonable Ultra, and the original like character that was just like not original because the game's like 6 years old, or almost 6 years old, 5.5. Not original character that was just like, dude, what is this? But like one of the more impactful ones, I will say, because we've had a lot over the years, sparking rarity, of course, but this guy, man, this guy was a real freaking threat. This guy had, so first and foremost, he was the originator of the double ultimate arts card effect, right? So he would get that, He would also lock you in when he had blast armor. He would lock you in when you defeated his allies. He had the ability to do 30-second on the ultimates, by the way. 30-second nullify endurance, which is crazy. Still probably the longest variation of this in the game, aside from the ones that just constantly do it, like Demon King Piccolo or some other characters, right? But 30 seconds and he can get 2 ultimates. Dude, endurance characters were not safe. At this time, like, one of the best, if not the best, I think was like Oob. And like, Oob was not usable anymore. Oob just fell off. And yeah, he would just hit like a Mack truck with that. His green card was strong too. And then anytime his combo was over, and again, if he got a green in the combo because it would give him nullify cover changes, anytime the combo was about to end, he would have a full gauge and he would throw a blue in your face. And the blue was so frustrating because it would destroy your whole hand. So you constantly were just getting your whole hand destroyed. And that may be a good thing. Maybe you had crap in your hand. Maybe you didn't have any Dragon Balls. Maybe on the reload you did get Dragon Ball. Like, but it could be a bad thing too. And it, above all else, it's just really frustrating, right? So I really want to give him his flowers because he was a titan. But unfortunately, I've talked about several things in this video. The multipliers for him, like, all the Ultras have good multipliers relative to the rest of the game, and all the Ultras are good, aside from the free characters, against 99% of the game. So understand that with the context, right? Like, they're all good versus like 99% of the game. But he is power crept. He is showing his age with the stats and multipliers, like, you know, the amount of damage he's doing, etc. That's just normal though. This guy's like 2 years old in like a few months, so he's pretty old. So it is what it is. I'm leaving him there as well though. However, the C tier is kind of interesting because I think C tier has some risers. Like, I think Broly, actually everybody but Kaioken could be slotted 1 up because situationally they could be risers. They could be better in other situations. So I'm actually gonna move Kid Buu next. Kid Buu. Do I think it's fair to put Kid Buu in A? So here, I'm just gonna say it now. The purpose of the A tier was to do something like this, to just leave everyone else below, because that was the point. that was the point. But I kind of feel like Kid Buu might be okay slotting into A tier, but just to keep the integrity of the video, I am going to put him B tier. But I do think Kid Buu is the best of these characters. But the one problem with Kid Buu was that he didn't have nullify cover, not nullify cover change. He didn't have nullify unfavorable elements, so he couldn't go neutral. And not all of these Ultras can go neutral, but a lot of them can. And when they can go neutral, that really, really, really opens up the board for them and allows for them to do crazy stuff. And you don't even need the full-on offensive neutral. You would like it. You would prefer it. But if you have at least the defensive neutral so you don't just get freaking blasted by your type disadvantage, that's huge. Kid Buu doesn't have that. So unfortunately, that is one thing I think that really, really holds back Kid Buu, but I can't deny Kid Buu's basically got he's got another like guaranteed kill. If he gets the green card off, you might as well just put your phone down. Kid Buu's gonna kill that character most likely. So there's that. I think Kid Buu got a little bit underrated because Vegito came out, Vegito Blue obviously, and just absolutely blasted Kid Buu out of existence because Kid Buu didn't have nullify cover, nullify unfavorable elements, right? And honestly, I think he didn't have that simply because Vegito Blue was the next Ultra. Seriously, I think that the only reason Kid Buu doesn't have that is because of that. And in my opinion, it really holds him back. But again, I think that's the only real flaw in Kid Buu's kit. I mean, you could argue for some of these characters like, oh, they don't have enough draw speed. Oh, maybe they don't have enough ki here or there. But like, okay, like that's fine. But like, I don't really know that that's a flaw, right? Not like a huge flaw anyway. Some of these characters just don't have certain things in certain spots. Like I mentioned with Vegito, where he didn't have the nullify cover change like anywhere else. So you were dependent on using his counter. That is, I think, an actual flaw. But I don't think Kid Buu has really any flaw in particular. Very, very strong character. But again, I think he's fair to put here, but I'm going to leave him here for the integrity of the video. Next up is Vegito Blue and Janemba. I think I could actually make, honestly, I think I can make like 3 more tiers between S and B, and it would still be fine. Now, I can make tiers in between multiple, but I think that's the point, is that those two are so far and away the best characters. It's not even funny. Janemba, I think, is the best character. Vegito Blue is a close second. Those were the two that I thought about when I said, hey, you could compare maybe to Goku and Frieza, who I think Goku and Frieza are still the best character in the game, which when Vegito came out and Goku and Frieza had got their buff, I thought it was neck and neck, 1A, 1B type deal. I actually don't think it's really close anymore. Goku and Frieza are so game defining. And it's not that I was particularly wrong. It's just, I think the climate has changed, the meta has changed, the environment of the game has changed to where Goku and Frieza are just so infinitely valuable, right? So, I mean, I could have been wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's why my opinion shifted. Is because, not because I had some committed, like, you know, revelation. It's just, I think that they are better suited for the game. And Vegito is insane, though. Do not get it effed up, dude. Vegito is freaking sane. He's insane, dude. Like, you can't even play against Vegito, basically. You know, the funny thing about Vegito is right before he came out, I think it was like, maybe it was like one more character before. Maybe it was like Cell or something. I'm not really sure what the exact order is. But I know like Orange Piccolo, I believe, also had it. But they started somewhere along the way, around that time, they started giving characters the ability to get Nullify Cover Change in 2 spots. And so, once upon a time, when like the LF Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, the 2-year anniversary headliner, got his Zenkai, one thing that I was really critical of was the fact that he didn't have Nullify Cover Change anywhere else. And it's very important on him because he was the originator of that effect. And nullifying cover change was only on his ultimate ability because Bojack was able to come out and just nullify your ultimate, basically. So they didn't want that to happen. So like he really needed it on his green card or something. The main ability somewhere. They didn't give it to him. But this guy, he pretty much perpetually has nullify cover change. Like you're gonna be it's gonna be very, very hard to catch Vegito Blue without the ability to nullify cover changes. And he also has that one-time guaranteed hit because he's going to take your gauge off. When he came out, people were using him as the first character, I myself included. But then like people understood how that worked, and then that stopped being a good thing to do. And so now you just wait till you get priority, or like you get the enemy to vanish or something like that, and then you just go to Vegito and you get a full guaranteed combo. And if it's late enough, you'll get your ultimate off. And his ultimate is like, I don't know if Janemba's hits harder, but prior to Janemba, it's like the hardest hitting ultimate in the game, with its little tap mechanic on it. You're just gonna lose the character. You're just gonna lose the character. Notice how I brought up a few characters. Like, you're just gonna lose the character if they hit you. It is what it is, right? You're just gonna lose the character. Other characters like Rose, you may lose the character. Also, Rose throwing like 3 ultimates is crazy. I didn't really give Rose enough flowers because he was so early in the list. But Vegito Blue, you just lose the character. You just lose. So Vegito Blue's kind of his flaw is that, and this is where Goku and Frieza are better. Vegito Blue is the ultimate early game quick hitter character. He has all of this crap where like you can't destroy his cards, you can't reduce his Dragon Balls, which is crazy to have, by the way. Because as you've seen already, characters are relying on that stuff to be effective defensively. They're relying on those effects. But Vegito's like, nah, you can't do that to me. So that's why he's so crazy too. But it's only for a limited time, pun intended. You will lose that stuff, and when he loses those effects, he becomes infinitely more easy to deal with. Infinitely more easy to deal with. But look, he's got extra draw speed for 30 counts. When that draw speed falls off, he becomes a lot easier to deal with. Because what's going to happen is in that first 30 seconds window, he's going to have perpetual nullify cover change, inability to destroy his cards or stop his combo. Basically, you can't stop his combo unless you reduce his ki. But like, so what? Because he's gonna when the gauge pops, he's gonna just be popping off on you anyway. Because he gets another 50 ki, draws a strike card, more key recovery, and then like I said, he has nullify cover change in 2 spots. He gets it for 5 counts when he fills the gauge, and the gauge fills in like 4 cards. Dude, insane. Also, applies the following effects itself when this character activates a Rising Rush, nullifies unfavorable elements, nullifies endurance, and then gets a free Dragon Ball. For what? Like, for what? For what? Why do you need the +1? Why do you need a second rush? And so, also, when he defeats an enemy, he gets a full gauge. That's unrestricted. I mean, up to 3 times, I get. 2 times, really, but you get my point. And he heals. So, like, if you had him in a situation where, like, okay, I lost my character, but he doesn't have Vanish. No, yes, he does. He's fine. And then he had blast armor. Obviously, most of these guys have blast armor. So, the point is, you can't punish Vegito early in the game. So he is an insane character. And so we're gonna segue over to Janemba. And boy, oh boy, is Janemba interesting. Janemba is... he's something, man. He's something. So we're just going to do a quick, full-on breakdown for Janemba as the newest character. Main ability, draws the ultimate, restores health and ki by 30 and 50, cancels downgrades and conditions, so he takes all the debuffs off of him. He also gives the enemy a 30% debuff on the enemy. I didn't really bring these up because I don't think these are in too many characters. I think Vegito also had these, but these are really strong. Taking off 30% of the enemy's cut effects is crazy. Crazy effect. Destroys all of your enemy's cards as well. Also, we scroll down here. So the following effects occur when the battle starts. He starts off with a full gauge. He starts with a full gauge. And he gets 150 damage, 70% cut, 1 draw speed, -5 arts cost, gradually restores health, and then also inability to reduce his ki. That is different than Vegito Blue, obviously. Vegito Blue had the inability to destroy his Dragon Balls or his cards. However, Janemba having the draw speed, card cost down, all that fun stuff means he's going to have a nice combo. So unless you destroy his cards, which a lot of characters can do, unless you destroy his cards, you're going to get blasted, right? Inability to reduce ki is also pretty strong because it shuts down characters like Pan, like Zamasu, who are reliant on that to be walls, right? They're reliant on that. And you're probably not using Pan against this guy anyway, unless she's neutral, I guess, from her main. But, like, that's it. Zamasu particularly gets shut down by this. And he's a blue regen character anyway, so ideally he's replacing Zamasu anyway. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on from here. When this character enters the battlefield, he randomly draws 1 new card when you have 3 or fewer, restores ki, and then does a bunch of like debuff stuff on the enemy with card cost, and he picks up some, or gives the enemy extra damage received, minus health restoration. And then if there's a defeated battle member, when he enters the battlefield, he gets a full gauge once again. And he restores, I just got the goosebumps reading that, man. Randomly draws 1 new card when you have 3 or fewer again. So he gets 2 cards if he has a defeated battle member. And then also, he goes neutral for 5 counts. So the only problem with this is that it's only for 5 counts. So if he's last man, you better go quick. if you need the type neutral, you better go quick. I mean, Janemba's strong enough to rip you to shreds anyway. But yeah, when he uses a strike or blast, he restores health and ki plus damage, and then also nullifies nullifies cover changes for 5 counts 1 time. That does reset when he switches. So on that first hit, on the first card, he will get nullify cover change for 5 counts. It's kind of reminiscent of Vegito Blue, but again, it only is going to proc once while he's out there. It's not going to proc repeatedly due to filling a gauge or whatever. He also has a knockback, which combos into Blues versus Blast, and gradually charges his own gauge while this character's on standby or on the battlefield. And also, whenever it's popped, and it's funny, because it's going to activate versus strike-based actions or dashing forward type blue cards or greens. So very versatile, actually. Again, similar to Gogeta Blues, it's just the inverse of it. So when it activates, he's going to randomly destroy 1 of your own cards and draw an ultimate. So he has a second ultimate as well, where that's a... Man, I burped. That is a direct buff versus Gogeta, because Gogeta draws a blue card, just a regular special move. This guy draws an ultimate. Restores health by 20%, restores ki by 50, gives him a full vanish, nullify unfavorable elements for defense only, gives him another draw speed level, and the following effects occur when the enemy activates an ultimate, awakened arts card, or a rush while he's on the battlefield. Restores allies' health, shortens allies' sub count so you can get your Janemba the hell out of there, and they heal so maybe they won't die, maybe if it's like an ultimate or something, and then cancels enemies' attribute upgrades and buff effects. This is a direct counter to characters like Vegito Blue, where when he activates a rush, he is going to nullify your endurance. This is really, really strong, because all of a sudden you can throw an endurance character out there and they won't get shredded. They won't get shredded. That's the point. And also, he takes their buffs off. So, like, if they had a bunch of, like, cancelable damage upgrades or whatever, he's taking that off, too. So really, really strong gauge effect there. And so he can get the gauge 3 times maximum throughout the battle. It passively charges, and then obviously he starts off with 1. He gets another one when an ally is defeated, then otherwise it passively charges. His green card draws a strike, gives him ki plus damage, and then shortens his sub count by 2 naturally for 10 counts. That's pretty strong too. And then he has the ability to take off 3 Dragon Balls with his green cards. For what reason? I don't know. I don't know. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward that Janemba is the best one. However, I will throw a bone to Vegito Blue, and I'll say 1A, 1B type deal, but I think Janemba is the best one. I do think it's kind of close, but it's not like it's like this. I mean, you could do that, I guess. I guess you could do that, but that's not what I'm doing. So all in all, I think that is how the Ultras rank. Again, left to right doesn't really mean anything. However, I will throw a bone to this. I think for Vegito and for Kid Buu, left to right does mean something, because I do think they are the best characters in those classes. For everything else, nothing else matters, right? I think that some of these characters have the ability to be risers. I think that Rosé can be a riser because of the Janemba prominence and relevance. And I think Hit and Gogeta and Kid Buu can also be risers in different situations. I think that for the C tier, you could see risers from Super Vegito or Broly, and maybe Gogeta potentially. And also things to look out for are, when are they going to actually add more equipments for some of these characters? Will it be Gogeta, Super Gogeta as the first one? I don't really know. But they have been giving characters some other platinum equips, like I said, like Broly. I think Janemba has access to it too, where the powerful opponent characters are getting that equip buff. So all in all, the Ultras in this game are really impressive, really strong. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, huge shout out to today's sponsors. Be sure to check it out via the link down below in the description, and I will see you all next time.